All right, guys, welcome to Wide Awake News Radio. I'm your host, Charlie McGrath, joined on this Tuesday, 23rd day of April, by, of course, the Eric Lovely, or Eric of the Lovely family, joining us from his undisclosed location, looking all happy on JTV. We're going to have a very enlightening conversation if the text message that Eric sent me before the program is any indicator of what he's going to bring to the table tonight. So I'm going to bring him on here real quick and let him get rolling. No, I'm not, because we just lost Eric Lovely. Eric, can you hear me? No, you cannot. You know why? Because it cut out on you. So, Gary, maybe we could try to get him back on. But if you're listening and not in the chat room, you want to join the folks in there, wideawakenews.com. Click on the Wide Awake Radio button, and you can join the folks in chat. If you want to watch me and Eric do this live when we get him connected again, you can access the Justin TV feed from there as well. All right, I'm dropping in the chat here in just a minute a interview I did today on RT, and it had to do with, of course, the aftermath and the activity after the bombing in Boston, and questions along the lines of, can we expect more attacks? Can we expect this, that, or the other thing? And the truth of the matter is, well, where we got him back. Hey, Eric, lovely. The truth of the matter. Hello. It's really staticky. Say something to me.
Hello, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
No, that sounds good. Eric, I was telling the folks about this RT interview I did today. Gary graciously jumped on board and recorded that thing and posted it up on the YouTube channel. And they had asked me this morning to come on and do this, and the topic was going to be the bombing in Boston. And I thought maybe we were going to get a little bit into the bizarro world of terror suspects, but it was barely touched on. There was more questions about, are we creating an atmosphere of terror by U.S. policy? And it's hard even answering these questions anymore, because of course we are, and everything seems to be. Everybody's talking about, even in the mainstream media, they're talking about things that are completely and utterly, it seems to almost irrelevant, right? Even alternative media is, or I should say independent media. I'm not supposed to say alternative media anymore. Independent media is really missing the point on a lot of events that are happening. Take for instance, the thing I take away from, and Eric, I want your opinion on this. The thing I take away from Boston is what Sibel talked about last night. America, wake up, man. You just got locked down. We just had martial law in Boston for 2 people, right? 2 people, the horrific event, 3 people dead, 200 people injured. We locked down one of the biggest cities in this nation to catch 1 criminal, because the other one was dead, right? And we locked down an entire city, and nobody batted an eye. Now, the Beehive State is Utah. So maybe we should put all of Utah on lockdown, because the Beehive State is a terrorist threat. Why? Well, because bees kill 53 people every single year in the United States. So we have bees killing people, scores more people than terrorists do, and that's no big deal. We have criminals, murderers, rapists, drug dealers running all over cities, large and small, across this country, but we can institute martial law, SWAT kicking indoors, throwing people out of their houses, business, commerce, everything coming to a grinding halt because they're trying to catch one guy, and nobody raises an eye for it. We surround the news with a patriotic spin, and we celebrate the fact that we caught these evil Chechen terrorists. Eric, it's sickening.
It really is quite ridiculous. It's about agendas. It's about how far, like a test, kind of like a test. How far can they push the issue? What can they do in this process? Because when let's set aside the terrorists and whether people believe this is a false flag or a real event. Let's look at the activities that took place afterwards. Like I have questions. I want to know which person in Department of Homeland Security or whatnot are going to question the police officers that tasered children in the street who are clearly not these grown adults. One of them was a female. These were clearly children in the street after the curfew. They were tasered and apprehended and then returned to their parents afterwards. Let's talk about the complete disregard for the Fourth Amendment, the complete disregard for the Third Amendment, the complete disregard for the Fifth Amendment, the First Amendment, any amendment you really want to look at, as they subsequently, they didn't go. Most people, they're believing this pea soup idea that they went house to house and they knocked on the door and they said, "Can we come in and look for the terrorists?" No, they kicked in the front doors. Okay, they let themselves in, guns blazing, and you were supposed to stand there and assume the position while they searched your house without question and with impunity. I mean, this is the reality of people, they don't want to talk about martial law, or they say, oh, no, this was a policing activity to try and catch some criminals. But these are the things that are going on, is that once you are afraid enough, once you're into a fearful enough state, you will capitulate, and you then become the victim. You then become the abused. And let me tell you, this whole manhunt, this whole entire thing. You see, here's another kicker. It's kind of like the police gentleman from California. And when you look at this situation, there was no hearing, there was no indictment, there was no guilt or innocent. The cops just went on this rampage chasing these two guys down. So even if they aren't, let's say they aren't guilty. I mean, let's say you're not guilty, and the cops are chasing you down. They're shooting at you with machine guns. What are you going to do? Well, you're going to defend yourself, okay? Because you can't fight for your right to tell the truth if you're dead on the street somewhere.
That's
so
right.
Even them firing at the police does not automatically assume them to be guilty. You see, these are the things that people don't understand about law, and they don't understand about American law.
Even in our legal system, Randy Weaver, he killed enforcement officials and was found not guilty.
Yeah, and he had the opportunity to go to jail. And basically, what this boils down is that these situations are happening. The people who go to actual court are either doped out of their mind or they're innocent. I mean, really, whether they may be doped out of their mind and innocent at the same time. But these people, who are on the streets. Well, I don't know if I said that correctly, because we don't know what this is on the streets. They take this landslide case like Weaver, and they try to go to court and they lose, thinking they had it nailed down. So what does that tell them? Well, we just aren't going to take this to court anymore.
Right.
We'll give them some street justice. We'll get what we want. Our propaganda, our agenda will be pushed forward. They'll be dead. They can't defend themselves. So,
And look at, even since that time, right? Even since that time, look at how far mentalities in this nation have changed, Eric. I mean, even just those few short decades ago, if something like this martial law lockdown had occurred, or the encroachment on freedom occurred, as we've seen over the last just couple of years, people would be losing their minds. But it's this incrementalism to the point now where anything goes, anything and everything goes. Taser children because they're out after a curfew set up to hunt down one 19-year-old kid who has no military, no paramilitary, no explosives training, and just a punk thug that they're going to lock down in the entire city of Boston for. And then the judge, jury, and executioner is some roided up dude in roaming through the streets of Boston with a license to do whatever the hell they want.
Well, yeah,
in the most liberal city, right? These are supposed to be the city. The city of Boston is where all these, as Sibel said last night, all these Ivy Leaguers come from. All these people concerned about the freedom of the people. Bull crap. They capitulated. They bent over and they took it.
Well, and there's a couple things here. There's I know the guy's the first name is Henry, and he claimed to be a retired Marine Corps captain. And they asked him what he thought about the situation in the gun control in Boston, and his words were, "I want my damn guns back."
Unreal. All right, we're going to be back with Eric Lovely. More Wide Awake News Radio, and certainly more topics than this, because Eric's got a fistful of them he wants to bring in the program. Be right back. Hang tight. Guys, welcome back to Wide Awake News Radio. Charlie McGrath, Eric Lovely, Gary Hendershot. Eric and Gary were having a nice conversation about the obvious government folks who were there during the bombing and the potential setup one way or another. Eric, long story short, false flag, yes or no?
Yeah. I definitely would agree with that. I've seen the photos of the two individuals at the end of the bombing physically aiding and assisting victims and people to escape from the explosion. There are physical photos you see of the older brother who is grabbing women, and he actually has one in each hand, and he is running away from the explosion and the event. Now, if he's a bloodthirsty terrorist that's looking for body casualties and body count, he's not, one, going to risk his face being splattered all over the place, and two, he's not going to assist the people he was just trying to kill. It doesn't make any logical sense to put them together. So to me, I'm viewing it as a false flag manipulation of events. However it plays out, whether they were part of like the 7/7 guys where the military police went out and recruited civilians to carry the backpacks around for their drill, which actually turned out to be real bombs. I don't know. I don't know what the underlying story is, but according to the data that I have, I'm going to claim false flag. People can say whatever they want. I mean, some of the biggest things that we're looking at here is really what they did with the authority once they took it upon themselves. We're talking about the police, the FBI. There are many things about the different witnesses, about the Arabs or the Saudi nationals who are under deportation and they don't want to give a reason. There's been letters from Congress back and forth. Whether it's going to pan out to anything, I don't know. But there's so many things abroad, and there's so many things here in this nation that it's going to be difficult to really cover them all. There is a 12-block state right now, okay? Utah, New York, Maine. There are several states on the East Coast. There are 11 of them watching and one doing. Who is the one doing? The one doing is California, okay? And what California is doing is it's out to take your pensions back. Basically, the new legislation and things that are coming through because of the Cyprus bill, they are now going to seize unsecured, and they're going to change the laws dealing with the actual IRAs and your actual retirement funds, and they're going to basically take that money. There's going to be a haircut of X amount of percent. Basically the same thing as these depositors. They're going to take 30 or 40% to offset the state of California's deficit as part of their austerity package that's coming through. Well, there are 11 other states who are they don't have the debt size of California, but the debt ratio is pretty close.
Right.
And they are eyeballing what California, if California can get it passed, you already have 11 states that are talking about implementing the same effects. So now you'll have a dozen states across the country where your pension and the security, supposedly, of your pension will no longer make a difference. They will simply take it if they want to take it.
Eric, I was going to ask you, Eric, listen, you and I, on your program, on my program, have been talking for, 4 years now, that eventually the you-know-what is going to hit the fan in this country. And we're going to be, we all learned what bailouts were. We learned what austerity is. Now we're learning what bail-in is all about. Eric, this is by design going to lead to a place where people are losing their mind. They're losing their mind. Stats came out yesterday. I did a video on it. I don't know if you saw it or not. But the people of this country are not healthy. The people of this country are the number one cause for death and injury is now suicide rather than car accidents. We have 400 or 1 out of 4 women are on some kind of antidepressant. Our kids are 3 times more likely to be on an antidepressant. We have more soldiers killing themselves or committing suicide rather than are dying in combat. We have a nation that's spending, how many billions, hundreds of billions of dollars a year on psychotropic drugs, and if they can't get off with drugs, they can't get off with alcohol, then they're getting off by shoving their face full of GMO food. So we have this outrageous 36% obesity rate. The nation, the society is collapsing. I took some grief over that title in that video yesterday. But this is what's happening. Our society is collapsing. We're losing our freedom, hand over fist. We're being led in from one false flag event to another. We're having legislation at the turn of every one of these events, stealing more of our freedom. We're not being eased into this slowly anymore. I think we're on the verge, seriously, and of a societal breakdown. You start stealing people's. Go ahead.
You're being pushed into it. I mean, there's no more ease about it. They're kicking you in the rump on the side of the pool as you go in. If you look at it, I thought the title was perfection. Really, I think the title hit it right on the head, and the talk that you gave about it, because this is the implosion of society. And if you look around the world, this isn't the only place it's happening. You look at what's going on in Ireland, where they have a 61% increase in suicide rates because they are micromanaging their entire life, telling them what they can buy, what they can physically have, telling them that vacations are gone, and these things are happening in America. I don't know exactly to say what the difference is between us and the Irish, because we're having a lot of the same fallout issues. We're having all of the suicides. We're having all of the, I can't handle society as it implodes in upon itself, so I'm going to space myself out on this pill or that drug, or I'm going to crawl into the bottom of a bottle and believe what's going on outside my window really isn't happening. This is the idea that's going on, or they're stuffing their face with countless munchies and different things, washing their problems away. See, what you're in right now is the denial phase, okay? And it really can be broken down into psychology, especially as a society. You are moving into the denial phase where everybody is gorging themselves on whatever they can to deny the reality.
All right, we're going to take a break. We'll be back with the denial phase and more Eric Lovely on the backside of this break. Okay, welcome back to Wide Awake News Radio. Every break, I get a little more confused. You guys are giving lots of good information during the break. Gary gave us a link, and I'm assuming, Gary, you want me to put this into the chat, right? Or did you already?
I already did.
Okay, cool. On people there at the scene and who they were, and were they government? Were they handlers? Were they taking these kids through a drill like the 7-7 type of deal? Who knows? Here's what we know. It stinks. It stinks rotten in Boston. Things ain't right. This whole situation isn't right. And the outcome of it is we have a nation that is desensitized to martial law, locking down massive cities, giving complete, total authority, your total freedom, your sovereignty over to a bunch of police because we need to hunt down one 19-year-old kid. This is what should be taken away from this, as far as I'm concerned, and this press to make this the normal, this Orwellian point of view. Eric, this is something that I know we're going to get back on what's going on in Ireland and what's going on with the rest of the world, but I had today. I'm not making this up. I went into a store today, and I'm trying to be careful. I didn't want to name names or anything like that. It's a store I go into all the time, right? And buying a few things, buying a little bit of lunch, and I get this from the person that's checking me out. Charlie, can you believe that they wasted the time to save that 19-year-old kid? They wasted the time and energy in the hospital to save him. They should have just let him die. And then this is a person who I've known for several years, and I wouldn't say is any kind of pro-war, pro-patriotism, pro-beat the drums of war, let's get over to Iran, let's get over to North Korea. Never, ever heard any comment on any geopolitical issue whatsoever from this person in my life for the years that I've known him. It's usually the weather or what's going on here, locally, nothing to do politically. And out of the blue, can you believe, Charlie, that they wasted the time to save this person's life? And I'm like, well, yeah. I mean, they do that for, rapists, and they do it for child molesters. They do it for anybody who is wheeled into the hospital that is needing medical attention. They receive medical attention. So, yeah, I can see it happening. Well, it just seems like it was a complete waste of resources on this scum, this, that, and the other thing. And I'm like, I'm listening to George Orwell's 1984. I'm listening to the 2 minutes of hate that is required every morning before people go to work. And I'm standing here listening to this coming from a person that it just floored me. It floored me, Eric, that we're so conditioned to whatever comes across that television as being reality. Who we should hate, who we should not have sympathy for, empathy for, who we should save, who we should not save, who it's okay to treat like filth, trash, rubbish, and who it's not. It's crazy.
Well, it really is. It is astonishing to me how many people saw these two guys' faces. Okay, they listened to the complete gibberish of the media that made no sense, with 20 million different claims going in all different directions. If you remember how the beginning, it's like every one of the investigations that you see, and there were so many people that automatically believed their guilt, that just said they were guilty, kill them and be done with it. They're outraged at the care that they took at nursing this boy back to life in the hospital. But the reality of it is one of the founding ideas of American law is innocent until proven guilty,
Right.
not speculated guilty. Okay, so the whole idea is that that is there.
Gary Hendershot, I do believe we've lost Eric Lovely, or you've lost me.
No, I've still got you, Charlie. It's struggling to pull Eric back in, but I'll tell you, he's hanging by a thread. Oh, there he got lost. Okay, sorry, Charlie. It's up to you now.
Well, I guess maybe we can try to get him on without the video feed. Yeah, I mean, to continue on his point, the whole notion of the Hippocratic Oath and doctors, this is what they have to do. Enemies on the battlefield are treated by our medics. I mean, this is the way it is. But to be able to desensitize a nation to the point that we don't care about rights, we don't care about innocent before proven guilty, we don't care about butchering people. It all goes right hand in hand with this whole this whole nearly 13-year war on terror, where we just sit around and pretend that these things that are being done in our name are somehow wholesome and justified. Eric, do we have you back?
Yeah, I am back. I don't know if it's a video issue or not, so I killed the video, but it was actual modem issue at that point. But yeah, I don't know where you got in those 45
No,
seconds.
I just kind of elaborated just a second on what you said, that the notion that we no longer we take 19-year-old kids, regardless of the charges against him, and we just consider this as somebody we should throw into a meat grinder. When the hell did this become our driving principles in this country?
Well, the reality is that the driving principles in a decay, imploding society are far different than that of one of a free society.
That's a good point.
So you have to understand that the reasons why the same principles don't exist is because we are broken and we are not following the same path. You see, if you say, I'm going to go over 100 yards and sit down, well, the assumption is already that you must transport yourself from point A to point B for that to be the truth. Well, that's the way law works. There are several assumptions that go along with law. Guilty and proven innocent I must assume then the responsibility of ensuring the suspect's life, liberty, and happiness up until he is proven innocent or guilty. In a society in decline and implosion with no morals, no ethics, I don't care what people want to think. They have situational morals, they have situational ethics, perception. They have this idea that this word perception somehow changes reality. No, as Nietzsche once said, perception is a continual mental juggling of one lie after another to convince you that your fraudulent activities are the truth. That's what Nietzsche said. Now, people can rely on this word named as perception, but the reality, the factual truth is we're imploding. The factual truth is that we're slowly beginning to tear each other apart at the seams. We are seeing resources dwindled. We are seeing money upheavals and people saying, well, stop spending the money and stop spending the resources. Just shoot them. Just kill them and get it over with. It's $1.85 for a bullet. It's $10,000 for a court case. The government is in charge. They know who's guilty. Go out and get the bad guys. Leave me alone in my little house. You're destroying my life and my perception of reality. And that's what's happening. You're actually, what you're seeing witness, okay, is society is collapsing now at such a rate of speed that perception is no longer altering the reality. People are now diving into mind-altering substances or suicide. They're escaping because the programmed perception no longer works. They realize it's a lie, and then they are into a spiraling fit of depression. They have no answers for the truth that now faces them right in the face. So what do? They run from it, okay? They run into a bottle, they run into a pill bottle, they run up their nose, they run in a vein in their arm, they run into any number of things. You know, they get lost in pornography and sexual activity. They get lost in accumulating wealth. All of these things are drugs so that their conscious mind will avoid dealing with what's right in front of them. That's the reason why I tell people it's going to be us, the small minority. The 85, 90% of the population out there, they're not going to do anything to help you. They will be damn lucky to continue living through the event themselves and be able to come out on the other side still taking in oxygen. Okay, this is the reality. They are most likely casualties in a very disgusting societal implosion, which will end in bloodshed. The government has shown you quite clear what their response is. Their response to problems is to step on you with a giant boot, stick a gun barrel in your mouth, and dare you to question what they're doing.
That's right. We're going to be back with Eric Lovely and more Wide Awake News Radio coming up in the second hour. Greg Manarino. We're going to talk about a flash crash that happened today and what in the world's going on with the markets in the second hour. We'll be right back. Hang tight. Welcome back to Wide Awake News Radio. Final segment of this first hour with Eric Lovely, and this is a shorter segment, Eric, as you know. You can probably tell me exactly how long it is. But I know you wanted to talk about what's going on with Frau Merkel and her and the German dominance over the European continent, as well as the end of sovereignty, and let's not forget a very telling roadmap that's being laid for what's going to happen here. Go ahead.
Well, I think that the big thing is, one, people want to go and they want to look at Merkel's recent speeches and statements, and she doesn't come right out and, well, exactly say it. But she basically warns all nations that are looking for Germany to solve their problems, they will surrender their sovereignty to Germany. And see, about 6, 7, 8, 10 years ago, I don't even know, 12 years, whatever. It's been a long time since I talked about how that the Third Reich basically ceded a victory on face at World War II to slide into the realm and upper echelons of the American government, and that the Third Reich would be revisited within the European Union. However, it wouldn't be done by guns and bombs. It would be done by leverage and economic woes. Now, I said this a very long time ago, and everybody said that I was nuts, I was insane. However, if you look at the National Socialist Plan, not Adolf Hitler. See, everybody gets hung up on the racism and Adolf Hitler. Wipe him away and look at the National Socialist Party and the money that was backing the National Socialist Party itself. What was its objectives? It was to unify the European section under one financial governance, and then to use that as a launching pad to seek world domination through financial governance across the entire globe. Now, this was the idea of the original fascism merger between corporations, and government, and this is what has happened. Okay, everything that I told people that the Third Reich was coming back in the masks of a dollar, okay, or a Deutschmark, or a franc, or whatever currency that
Euro.
was going to be used. Well, that's what I found out later after the fact, because at that time I knew the euro was being talked about, but it wasn't the finalized mainstay, so on and so forth. So I didn't make that claim. But now we can tell that the financial instrument used was the euro. The Brussels is the figurehead of administration, but Merkel and Germany are the ones dominating the entirety of Europe, and that's the way they want it. Now, there are some problems. You see, they're proceeding to move forward now, and they have a plan of action to move against Spain to seize some of its gold. And they have a plan of action to move against Italy, which they think they're going to accomplish quite quickly because the Italian nation has no government. It has no actual president to stand in opposition. It has no structure on that scale to stand in opposition. But, you know, I have a real people better need to be paying attention. If you want to know where Europe is going, look at the signs, look at the demonstrations of what the Italians are portraying Merkel and so forth as. Now, if you look at what the Italians are doing and you roll back to the 1910, and you see the same exact symbols being used, what spawned out of the late 1800s and the 1900s because of those symbols that were spawned? It was the mafia's rebellion against the government. Okay, the people were actually blowing up politicians, blowing up buildings. They started murdering these people in their sleep. Their servants were poisoning them. I mean, people really need to investigate what the mafia really did as a political movement within their own nation, because it started as a revolutionary thing. Okay, now you're messing with the same people that gave birth to the most sinister freedom fighting group, because they didn't care. You were getting your afternoon tea. Well, your maid had already poisoned you, your wife, and all your children, and she had done walked down the driveway while you're laying on the back deck dying. Okay, bankers came out of their banks and they blew up in their limos going to lunch. Okay, these are who the Italians are. This is the Italian heritage. And if you think you're going to go in and claim 72% of 2,400 tons of gold, and you're just going to rip the Italians off and take it away from them, I mean, I think you have another thing coming. I think that you're bordering line. When we talked about it, currency wars and all these things, they lead to what? Real wars.
Yeah, hot wars.
Okay. So
yeah, no doubt about it. I mean, that's exactly right, and that's why we've talked about so much that these things that seem innocuous and boring, well, these are all the precursors to violence, right?
But yeah, look at what Japan's doing with their money, and look at the statements that China issued over the currency war that's over there. What did the Chinese ministers say? Be careful how many dollars you print, lest it represents coffins tomorrow. Okay? Now, what does that mean? That means if you keep up with this currency war, if you keep devaluing the money, we're just simply going to blow you up. That's what it really means. They're threatening you with a death toll. Okay, that is escalating from a currency war to a hot war. And, if you look at all of these issues going on and all these individuals printing, like Japan, 1.4 trillion, you printed that in one day. I mean, my Lord, these people, society as a whole, it really boils down to the society as a whole. The whole entire world's global society is imploding. Okay, the morals, the ethics, the fibers, you gave them up. The people of the world gave them up for short-time pleasure, short-time inferred wealth, not even received wealth, inferred wealth. And then they were robbed, they were stolen from, the carpet was pulled out from under them, the things are collapsing and imploding. The very extremely wealthy, the super elites are running rampant. You have the public is now being programmed, because the public, it listens to propaganda, but people don't understand. If Guy A looks up on Capitol Hill and says, well, everybody in Capitol Hill steals, robs, plunders, and pilfers, including the president, who's got a Nobel Peace Prize, and he's one of the biggest thieves and murderers on the planet. If all the banks are doing it, if all the corporations are doing it, well, then that's what you do to be successful. So now I'm going to kill, rob, murder, and slay whatever.
And pound on the desk so Charlie can't hear anymore.
Well, to do all of these disgusting things on a social, local level. This is the programming you're getting within your children and these things that sure. It's okay to rob from you. It's okay to steal from you.
Get it while you can. Get it. Who cares
right.
Who gets hurt?
And if I get enough, I'll get away with it.
And you know what? It's true. It's true. You get enough wealth, you steal enough wealth, you become influential, you end up writing legislation that governs the nation. Period.
Yeah, you just have to steal enough to be untouchable. So, I mean...
Lovely with your reality dose.
Yeah, and people don't like reality, but I mean, there's no way. I think one of the biggest things that Gary Franchi, I'm going to go ahead and plug, since we're on that broadcast right now, in case you guys saw us at 7 o'clock, we went on Gary Franchi's Next News Network. You guys slide over there and watch some of his videos that came out today, and we'll look at some where the guy talks about social implosion, where he talks about education and social programming, where he talks about the Bolshevik education system that came in the 1800s, the thing you're living under now, the thing that has destroyed your society, okay, as being one of the main legs. Really look at this report given on the Next News Network. Listen to what Gary and the good doctor have to say, and listen to the reports and things that are going on, because they make all of the compelling arguments. It is time to abandon the ideology of forced schooling. Okay, forced schooling is a farce. It is a fiction. It destroys communities. This lady, this MSNBC lady, getting on TV telling you that your children belong to the collective, that the collective owns your children. Well, then the collective owns guilt, and no individual owns guilt. That's what a collective means. So if one person commits, eventually you'll get to the point where you could possibly argue away murder because you're a member of the collective, and the collective is guilty by not bringing you up correctly and not giving you the proper things you need, so you had to resort to murder, ergo murder is now legal. See, this is where you go with this mindset. And we either get up off of the tracks now and we do something about this, and we start thinking about true ethics, morals, and the idea, the age-old question. Here's the first question everybody needs to ask themselves. Does right and wrong exist? Because if it doesn't, then collectivism is perfect. If right and wrong exists, if there is a fiber of things that you should do and shouldn't do to your fellow man, then collectivism is automatically discarded. Because there is individual responsibility with right and wrong, and you cannot have that within a collective mentality. And you will never get the drones of a collective mentality to ever accept that there is individual guilt. I mean, this is a whole thesis paper I could really write on the processes of destruction of society, and they have done an absolutely phenomenal job at doing it. Okay, there are so many children now that are so lost. The next generation, they don't want to do anything. They feel no responsibility for anything. They feel no liability for anything because, well, it's always someone else's fault. Well, I belong to the collective, and the collective didn't train me correctly. It's their fault. Let them pay you the fines. Let them pay you the damages out of the collective's money, because it isn't my fault. Right. Okay, what's the banker's fault? You allowed all these things to happen. It was the collective's fault for not regulating the bankers. It was the collective's fault for not watching the tills. You let me steal, therefore it is your fault. So you will pay the price. I mean, this mentality is pervasive. It's everywhere. It's disgusting. It's a degenerative personality.
And it will be destroy one another. It'll be rip each other apart when the final societal breakdown occurs, Eric.
Yeah, well, you'll have one group sitting on the sideline eating pork chops and steak and their little poached eggs and drinking their Mai Tais and their little drinks with their pinkies out, and they're going, look at those idiots. We took everything they have, and then they killed each other for it.
Yeah, and they ripped each other apart for it.
Yeah, that's really what it's going to boil down to. And this is the reason why they look down on the common man, is because we have gotten to a point where we lack the ability to mentally rise above the mental corruption and understand what right and wrong really is.
Yeah, no doubt. And it's going to end badly, is it not?
It's going to end horribly disgusting. So be prepared. Ammo, ammunition, firearms, and food and water.
Eric Lovely, true words have never been spoken, especially that last little statement there at the end. Catch Eric Lovely again Thursday night, 5 o'clock West, 8 o'clock East, as he joins me again on Wide Awake News Radio. Eric, thanks for enlightening us and scaring us and breaking some of that down for us. I appreciate it. Guys, stay tuned. Coming up here in just a few minutes, we're going to have Greg Manarino on, and we'll talk a little bit more about what's going on in Europe and this flash crash that occurred today, what's going on in the markets, what's going on with precious metal. We'll be back in just a few minutes. Hang tight.